back in 2009, From Software created a game that would revolutionize a new genre of gaming itself. One that would be the pinnacle for what is expected of challenge and reward in video gaming. And while most people contribute Dark Souls 1 to this, Demon's Souls was actually the pioneer that set off the entire genre. And now, to many of our pleasures, some for the first time like myself, we have the ability to enjoy this title in all of its glory in the modern era. 2020 delivered us Demon's Souls Remake, a complete from the top to the bottom remake of the original classic that stays absolutely 100% true, some might say to a fault, of the original. As I said before, I did not play the original back in 2009. I did not even know the game existed until I was well into Dark Souls 2. And many players share that sentiment. Demon's Souls originally was a very niche game, a cult classic, if you will, and the player base was small but passionate. Much like the 2020 player base, considering how hard it is to come by a PS5, which this game is an exclusive for. Thanks, scalpers. But anyway, how does a game from 2009 get polished and be remade to stand to the present day? Well, I'm here to tell you. This is Tentacrew Review. So starting off, let's talk about sound design for Demon's Souls Remake, because I feel like it is a area that Bluepoint did an exceptional job on many facets.
Is the Nexus. It holds together the northern land of Boletaria. Thou canst not quit the Nexus, but the 5 Archstones will guide thee to the outer lands.
So, they went and they completely remade and re-altered the original soundtrack for the present day version. That being said, they kept the original soundtrack as an option that you can turn on if that is something that you prefer. This is going to be something for people that want a different feel to how the music makes the environments feel. The original has more of a deep, dark vibe to it, a lot more melancholic. The new soundtrack has more high fantasy, epic tones to it, which I personally prefer, but I do know that some of the fans of the original will prefer that original soundtrack because it does keep the tone more of the same. And one of the complaints that I have seen the most is the tone shift by some of the music and environmental scores, but we'll get into the environment later. The biggest thing, though, with the sound design, because let's be real here, From Software, Bluepoint, who is the company that remade this game from the ground up. If you don't know who Bluepoint is, they remade Shadow of the Colossus most notably, and they did a phenomenal job with that game as well. But the thing that both of these companies do very, very well is their scores. They have scores that perfectly go with whatever environment they're wanting to do. I have no fault at all with the scores for this game. And I also have no fault with how Bluepoint has implemented the most next-generation part of the PS5, and that is the haptic feedback with the controller. So if you are not familiar with what haptic feedback is and why this is a truly next-generation experience, is it kind of melds traditional gameplay with some of the aspects of VR is the best way I can explain it. So the controller reacts to what is going on the screen in a way that was not available before. Before, with traditional Rumble, it just felt like you had a Hitachi in your hand every time you got hit by something. But nowadays, with the new haptic feedback system, it has very fine vibrations that emulate movement, attack patterns, where you're getting hit, how you're getting hit, how heavy the attack was. It simulates all that through very specific vibrations that just do a wonder to really send home those feel-good vibes. So maybe it's not as far from a Hitachi as I originally thought. But another aspect that comes with it is the sound system. Anytime you kill an enemy, you hear a whoosh come from your screen into your controller. Anytime you send a spell flying, it does that in reverse. The spell charges in your hand and you hear it go from your controller away from you into where your TV would be. Both of these in combination lend to a remarkable experience. You can feel your footsteps. You can feel every block with your shield. Anytime you swing and hit something, whether you're tanking off a wall or hitting into enemy armor or flesh, there is a different feel and sound that goes with that. Getting close to a fire trap, for instance, you will hear the crackle of the fire and feel a light vibration to the side that the fire is from your controller. It is just truly phenomenal how much sensitivity that they brought into this controller, and how much Bluepoint is actually willing to implement that into this remake. They did a phenomenal job with it. Kudos to them on all fronts with implementing the haptic feedback system. Enemies sound how you would expect, nothing truly stand-outish here, but it is good feedback nonetheless. You can hear footsteps coming, you can see enemy attack patterns, you can hear and feel them now with your controller. It is all very well implemented, and the sound on all the weapons, your character, enemy characters, it is all very, very well done. Speaking of enemy characters, let's get to visuals. We can start with environment and enemy character design. They did a stand-up job. If you had told me that this was a game from 2009, I would not believe you, just because of the level of detail that they were able to take all of these original environments, rebuild it from the ground up, but keep it almost to a T the same as far as how the gameplay interacts with both the enemies and the environments. Look and feel completely through the roof as far as quality goes. This is about as next generation visually as you can get without being on a gaming PC. And some of the games that have been made for PC recently do not have graphics as good as this console. And I am happy to hear that we are finally in a generation where consoles are able to compete graphically and processor-wise with some PC games. Each environment has a very unique feel to it. I love how the world design is built. It's not interlaced like some of the later games From Software has made does. It is a level-based system, but each level is so unique in its feel and look that it is very refreshing jumping from one archstone to the next to the next. It keeps things very, very stimulating, and I feel like that's something that some of these games struggle with. A lot of the later titles like Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2, for instance, definitely settle into those more drab, monotone colors and themes, and it can get very visually boring after so long with each environment not really feeling that much different. You can only change brown, black, and darkness so much before it gets dull. This game goes above and beyond in that regard. The castles definitely have the feel of high fantasy to them. The knight enemies and everything in those areas feel like they are meant to be there. Nothing feels out of place. Same thing with the mines. Lautria's Tower feels like it's something that could have been ripped straight out of Bloodborne from the Nightmare of Mensis. It has that dark magic feel to it with mine flares everywhere. It is very, very cool how they both complement each other from world to world and subvert expectations and take you from one locale to the next and just keep that stimulus going over and over. Much like with the enemy audio, enemy visuals, while not being anything standoutish, you have your knights, you have your archers, you have your miners, your mine flares, things along that. There are very few standout enemy designs as far as the standard enemies go, but they are all very, very well done. This is in part due to the date of the original material. It is a PS3 game after all, but they did the most that they could with those enemy designs, and I feel like they did bring them up to a modern standard. And the same thing goes with the bosses. The bosses visually are very, very stunning and appealing, even if some of them, in actual combat are not the most interesting things. They are at least interesting to look at. And with the camera system, you can really get really deep down in there and see everything that you want to see. You can probably count how many taste buds are on the adjudicator's tongue if you really wanted to. And let's be real here, why wouldn't you want to? It's on everybody's minds. I know you're thinking it, I'm thinking it. Maybe that's a video for another day. But from the adjudicator to the old hero to King Allant, every single one of the bosses, aside from the swamp bosses, because I feel like they are the most generic of the boss types and they also have the most generic look to them, are very, very masterfully crafted. And even with those, again, it's the source material bringing it up to a present day. They did the best they could with what they could. You can only do a mass of leeches so well, and I think they did a good job with it. Sticking with visuals, this game also has the best character creator that has come from a Souls-like maybe ever. The only thing I can think of that would be competing with it at this point is the Nioh 2 character creator, and I think in some aspects, as far as like the facial stuff goes, this game goes above and beyond what Nioh 2 did. Nioh 2 had more body control, but I feel like this one really takes it up a notch on what you can do visually with your character. It has the no helmet mode, so you can actually adore your character as you're going through, even if you are wearing helmet type armor, which why wouldn't you? And with the remake, they also redid most of the animations that the player character does. This does not travel from the enemy characters. They stay and behave very much the same as the original. But as far as the player character goes, it has been a top to bottom rework on how the weapons behave in their hands. And they wanted to get rid of the jank and some of the clunk factor that those original weapons had while still keeping the cadence and the feel of those weapons intact. They did their best to keep all the hitboxes the same, how the hitboxes fly, the amount of stamina each weapon uses, the speed at which the attacks come out. They did their best to keep all of those the same while also visually making it more appealing and feel like it flows a lot better than what the original did. Again, I didn't play the original, so I don't know how this clunk factor plays out. But like I said, I learned about this game whenever I was playing Dark Souls 2, and I felt like at that point, going back and playing a PS3 Souls-like, the clunk factor would have probably made me dislike the game that much. So I'm very, very happy that I don't get any vibe of clunk from a game that was made in 2009 and brought to the present day. Very, very well done. The same can be said for most of the bosses, bar a few. Flame Lurker and the Man-Eaters are the biggest perpetrators of poorly designed AI, but a lot of the standard AI from like grunt-type enemies is not the best. You can definitely see the age of the game in how they track you, how they move around the environments, how they interact with the environments. Multiple times you'll see them falling off cliffs or triggering traps that were meant for you. And while some of that does lend to the charm of this type of game, and it's going to be very much appreciated by veterans of the game who want the game to feel as close to the original as possible, I feel like they did that almost to a fault. With the addition of omnidirectional locked-on rolling, I feel like the level of mobility that has been afforded the player overdoes whatever the AI can keep up with. The only thing I think that they might have altered, because I noticed it on a few enemies, is some of the tracking on attacks seems very, very tight, where you just can't get around an attack animation going on. It just follows you all the way around. That might have been from the original. That might have been something that they added to kind of combat the mobility of the player. I don't know. But for the most part, it is not immersion breaking, but it is definitely something noticeable, especially, like I said, with the Flame Lurker and the Man-Eater fights. Their AI does not behave very well at all and does not stand up to a present-day AI as far as Souls-likes go. I actually had an instance where the Man-Eaters both independently got stuck, and I was unable to finish the fight. I had to warp out and then come back in. I don't know if that guy's coming back either. Yo, I think homie's gone. And the last thing I'll say about visuals is, while I am a huge fan of what a lot of the bosses look like, I know there has been some flack given to a few of them. Again, most notably the Flame Lurker. He was one of the more iconic bosses from the original, and a lot of people either love or hate the new Flame Lurker design. If you are a purist of the original, you probably dislike it. Just wanted to throw that out there. It didn't have any factor on me. I thought all of the enemy designs were very well done and very appealing to watch while fighting. And fighting is the name of the game, and if it doesn't feel good, then why would you play it? And I will say that with all of the quality of life changes that they have done, this game does feel modern enough to play and really, really enjoy. It stands up to some of the more modern titles. There is a little bit of that age shown with just how limited you are in your move types. You have your standard attacks, you have your regular power attacks. There's no plunging attack that I could figure out. Everything is very streamlined and one-dimensional, but not necessarily in a bad way. What they do very well. As far as difficulty goes, I did not have too much trouble with this game. I do know that a lot of people that will be playing this for the first time most likely are a fan of the Souls-like genre, so this isn't something that is going to push your Souls-like envelope and really give you a challenge that you might be wanting, but it is definitely challenging enough for you to enjoy. It's not a walk in the park by any means, and I feel like it is actually a good entry point for people into the Souls-like genre if they haven't played any already. And the reason I say that is because while a lot of the systems in this game are quite simple, such as how the combat flows and stuff like that, it also has quite a bit of nuance in the metadata that you can get into as far as builds go, as far as how you level your weapons go. Different stones do different things. While this isn't necessarily new to the genre, it is different from anything From Software did after the original Demon's Souls, and it's still a little bit jarring even for veteran players of the Souls, like that maybe didn't play the original Demon's Souls. It's hard to figure out what exactly everything does because some things are just named oddly. But that's just naming convention. That's something that you can get used to quite easily. So, it has enough entry-level stuff for new players to enjoy it, while also having a lot of depth for veteran players, both if you've played the original and are new to the original but are familiar with the Souls-like genre. And the biggest thing that I want to compliment this game on is something that was from the original, and that is the world tendency and player tendency systems. Effectively, each world you get 3 different world states with this system. So if you go in and you are just walking the floor with everything, you are going to progress towards white world tendency. And once you hit pure white world tendency, new things will happen, new gates will open. There are going to be new events in that stone that you can go and take advantage of. Same thing goes in the opposite direction. If you're using the stones that make you human and then are dying quite a bit, you are going to go towards black world tendency. The game is going to get harder. There's going to be more red phantoms invading you. But also, once you hit pure black world tendency, you will be getting access to items that you would not have gotten from a neutral run or from a pure white world tendency run. So like I said, there's effectively 3 different world states and 3 different sets of things that you can get from each of these archstones. On top of that, there's also player tendency that goes from white to black. It's based on killing NPCs or something along those lines. I think it's killing NPCs to killing red phantoms. I don't know the specifics on that because I didn't play around with that system as much as the others, but it is just another layer of depth that I feel like really sets this game above what some of the next titles From Software put out. I feel like they dumbed a lot of the systems down from this one to make it slightly more streamlined in the others, which isn't necessarily a bad thing if that goes to their vision, but I do like that added depth for this particular title, considering the nature of the game itself is fairly linear through the levels. So, on Tentacrew Review, we go on a 1 to 8 tentacle scale for our ratings, and this is a solid 7.5. If it were not a remake and having some of that remake jank that the original game had that you just can't completely polish out, even if you do rebuild from the top up while you're trying to keep faithful, this is about as close as you can get. A lot of remakes nowadays are completely overhauling the combat system. You can look at Final Fantasy VII Remake or any of the Resident Evil remakes, where they take the setting and the tone and the story, but they completely overhaul how the game works. This one does the opposite. It takes that original tone and it stays absolutely true to a fault with every aspect of that, while also trying to make it as accessible and engaging to new modern players as it can be. And Bluepoint, bravo, you really outdid yourselves with this one. No one should be surprised after how well Shadow of the Colossus was done, but I feel like this just takes it up even a notch from that. From using the PS5's unique systems like haptic feedback and really letting us see what a next generation title can truly be, you have outdone yourself. So like I said, 7.5 out of 8. Thank you all very much. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit a like and subscribe to the channel. Also, maybe check out the Twitch channel of the same name. We stream nightly, 10:30 Easterns, doing Soulsborne challenge runs aplenty. Much love. Take care. Bye-bye.